This story begins in the middle of the desert, where a group of men is searching for something among the rocks, while the sun punishes them without mercy. They carry machetes and tools, and after a long search, one of them finally finds a hole in the ground and calls his companions over. Together, they start injecting gas into the opening, waiting for something to come out from the depths. After several seconds of tension, a spider violently emerges and bites one of the men. The venom acts immediately. His partner falls to the ground, writhing in pain as more spiders pour out of the hole, prompting the other men to catch them in plastic containers. Seeing that their companion cannot be saved, they decide to put him out of his misery. Sometime later, in France, a young man named Kaleb visits a shop selling contraband goods run by a man named Ali. Kaleb is looking for jewelry for a gift, and Ali assures him that everything he has is authentic, even claiming his pieces come from Dubai. However, Kaleb recognizes the low quality and tells him he knows Ali keeps the good stuff in the back room. Ali finally caves and takes him to a secret room where exotic animals are on display. Among them, Kaleb discovers a spider that captures his full attention. Ali offers him the spider, along with some earrings for 100 euros, and although he warns him to be careful because it's likely venomous, Kaleb assures him he's a professional who has been collecting insects since he was a kid. Without a second thought, Kaleb pays and takes both items. Upon arriving at his apartment building, Kaleb finds some kids bothering Mrs. Chow, the cleaning lady, so he steps in to help her and confiscates a backpack full of firecrackers. However, Mrs. Chow gets annoyed with him too, telling him to leave because everything was left a mess. Kaleb then runs into his friend Matthys, who has a habit of stealing bikes from the neighborhood. Matthys claims he just borrows them because no one asks for them back, but Kaleb demands he focus on the sneaker business they run together. They check the pending orders and discover that a shoebox destined for a neighbor named Tumani is damaged and soggy. Matthys says nobody cares about the box as long as the sneakers are fine, but Kaleb insists that they offer quality from the product to the packaging, so he asks him to get a new box. Kaleb enters his apartment and finds his sister Manon moving their late mother's things, which infuriates him because she is boxing them up as if they were trash. He then runs to his room and discovers the lights are off, which is a serious problem because his exotic pets need controlled heat and humidity to survive. Kaleb turns everything on and takes his new spider out of its container, speaking to it affectionately and naming it Rihanna. He places it temporarily in a damaged shoebox and promises to build it a proper home soon. He then goes to find Manon to confront her for turning off the lights in his room, explaining that some of his species are very delicate and could die. She replies that she's fed up with paying such high electricity bills because of his setups and suggests selling the apartment because it's falling apart. Kaleb refuses flat out because that place holds all their mother's memories, and they end up in a heated argument. Manon tells him she wants to start her own business and needs the money, but Kaleb shoots back that if she doesn't like living there, she can leave, and forbids her from entering his room again. That same afternoon, there is a party in the building to say goodbye to Claudia, an elderly neighbor who is moving out because the rent has become too expensive. Kaleb runs into Tumani, who complains about his new sneakers because the ones he's wearing are destroyed and make him look like a bum. Tumani explains that everyone calls him Tien, which is why he only wears that brand. It's his signature, and he'll wear them until he dies. Kaleb promises to bring them to him the next day in a brand new box. At the party, Kaleb gives the earrings to Claudia as a farewell gift, and she gets very emotional. Claudia tells him that his mother, wherever she is, must be proud of the man she brought into this world. Meanwhile, in Kaleb's room, the spider chews a hole in the damaged box and escapes without anyone noticing. Later that night, Kaleb returns and discovers the lights in his room are off again. Furious, he turns everything on and goes to check on Rihanna, but when he opens the box, he finds the hole and realizes the spider has escaped. He searches the room frantically to no avail, checking every corner and every box, until he finds a cocoon with eggs under a painting. Kaleb puts the cocoon in another box and decides to sleep on the sofa just to be safe. The next morning, Kaleb wakes up startled by the noise of a drill. Manon has invited several people to help her repair the apartment's bathroom, including Lila, Matthys, and Jordi, an old childhood friend of Kaleb's with whom he has a tense relationship. Jordi is now Lila's boyfriend, and Kaleb is uncomfortable with his presence but tries to hide it. Jordi confronts him, saying they aren't 9 years old anymore, and if he has a problem, They can discuss it outside. Kaleb says everything is fine, though the tension between them is obvious. Jordy mentions he no longer has his old car, but a new one, implying he's done well in life, and Kaleb responds coldly before asking them to let him use the bathroom to shower. Kaleb grabs the sneakers for Tumani and goes out to deliver them. When he shows them to him, Tumani is thrilled to see the shine and the details, but at that moment, Gilles, a conflictive neighbor who hates Kaleb, appears. Gilles checks the box suspiciously and tells him he knows he's trafficking, adding that he should work like his sister instead of getting into trouble. Kaleb replies that he only sells sneakers and tells him to go to hell because it's none of his business. Tumani arrives at his apartment excited and sits down to try on the sneakers, but as he slides his foot in, he feels a sting. He pulls his foot out quickly, and a spider emerges from inside the shoe, so he kills it with a blow. However, when he checks the sneaker again, dozens of small spiders swarm out and begin crawling up his body as he panics. His little dog, Maggie, eats one of the spiders while Tumani tries to swat them off. Meanwhile, back at Kaleb's apartment, Jordy and Matthys enter his room without permission and discover his collection of exotic insects. Jordy confronts him, asking where he got a dictator scorpion, pointing out that he is violating several animal protection laws. Kaleb orders them to get out of his room, but they keep arguing. Jordy mentions that when they were kids they both had insects and took care of them much better, criticizing the conditions in which Kaleb keeps his pets. Kaleb's phone rings several times because Tumani is trying to contact him, but he ignores the calls while arguing with the others. In his apartment, Tumani is in very bad shape. The venom has already taken effect. He has strange marks on his skin, his eyes are leaking a yellowish fluid, and he can barely move. He tries to reach the phone but falls to the floor, cutting himself on broken glass. He can no longer stand up or answer the calls. Hours later, the neighbors start to get worried because Maggie, the dog, hasn't stopped barking for a long time, and Tumani isn't responding. Mrs. Chow asks if anyone has seen him, and Jordy tries calling him, but no one answers. Gil decides to force the apartment door open, and when they finally manage to open it, everyone is shocked to find Tumani dead on the floor. The police arrive at the building, and the officers are wearing face masks, which makes the neighbors nervous. One of them asks why they are wearing that protection and if they think they are animals, so the officer takes off his mask to calm them down. He orders them to return to their homes and informs them that no one can leave the building for the time being, and that if anyone shows symptoms of fever or any other discomfort, they must call a doctor immediately. Gilles seizes the moment to accuse Kaleb in front of everyone, claiming he sold drugs to Tumani in that sneaker box. Kaleb tells him to go to hell, and they start fighting until the officers separate them and order the hallway cleared while they remove the body. Back in the apartment, the group discusses what could have happened to Tumani. Manon asks Kaleb directly if he sold him drugs, and he is deeply offended, telling her she doesn't even know him well enough to accuse him of something like that. Jordy steps in and says that what he saw on Tumani's arm didn't look like needle marks, but rather bites. Meanwhile, Mrs. Chow goes down to the building's basement to clean and notices an alarming amount of spider webs on the ceiling. She covers her face with a handkerchief and starts spraying insecticide everywhere, unaware that the spiders have already escaped through the ventilation ducts. In the apartment bathroom, Lila is cleaning when she hears something fall to the floor behind her. She tries to put the vent cover back in place but slips and falls into the shower. As she gets up, she notices something moving among the towels, and when she goes to investigate, a huge spider jumps onto her arm. Lila screams in terror, calling for help, and Jordy runs into the bathroom. He tries to catch the spider with a cup because he refuses to kill animals, but the creature is too fast and jumps from one side to the other while everyone yells at him to kill it already. Kaleb is the only one asking him not to kill it and to try to catch it. After several failed attempts and with everyone pressuring him, Jordy finally smashes it with a broom, but when he lifts the towel, they discover with horror that dozens of small spiders are running out in all directions. To make matters worse, more spiders start coming out of the shower drain, so Jordy drags Lila out of the bathroom in a hurry, and they close the door, sealing it with all the duct tape they can find. The group confronts Kaleb and demands an explanation. Manon reminds him that she saw him place a towel under his bedroom door, so she knows he is hiding something. Matthys tells him they are on his side and just want to know the truth. Finally, Kaleb admits he bought a spider, but insists it was 10 times smaller than the one they saw in the bathroom and that he only bought one, not an entire army. Matthew suggests that maybe those are its offspring, and Geordie recalls what he said earlier about Darwin, that some species can grow up to 10 times their size when adapting to face predators. Kaleb mentions that the spider spun a cocoon when it escaped the box because the room was too cold. When Geordie opens the box where Kaleb kept the cocoon, they find many more spiders inside. They quickly close the box and seal it shut with more tape. Outside the building, the police declare an official quarantine and seal off the main entrance. In the basement, Mrs. Chow is still fumigating when she discovers a gigantic nest of spiders hidden in the ceiling. She gets closer with a flashlight to get a better look, but a spider jumps onto her face, knocking her off the ladder. Her body tumbles down the stairs and lies motionless. Back in the apartment, Lila insists they must leave the building, but Kaleb objects, saying he cannot abandon the neighbors who have always helped his family. Manon tells him they are trapped and there is no point in fighting, but Kaleb calls her selfish for only thinking of herself and not caring about the people living in the building or everything they did for them and their mother. Finally, they reach a compromise. They will go warn the neighbors and then escape altogether in 15 minutes. Kaleb and Matthews go door to door trying to alert everyone, but no one listens to them. A neighbor who practices martial arts is exercising in his apartment when he sees a spider on the wall. He tries to kick it but ends up kicking a hole in the wall. Peering inside, he discovers the entire interior is infested with spider webs. The spiders jump on him, and although he screams for help, his father is asleep and doesn't hear him. Kaleb and Matthews arrive at Claudia's apartment and knock insistently, but she doesn't answer. Matthews says she probably moved out already, but Kaleb can hear the television on inside, so he decides to force the door open. Upon entering, they find Claudia dead on the sofa, her body covered in webs with spiders crawling out of her. They flee in terror, and in the hallway, they run into Mr. Benzoui, another neighbor, who is covered in bites and asking for help. Matthews wants to approach him, but Kaleb stops him because it is evident he has already been bitten and it is too late for him. They scream at him to go back to his apartment while they run back to the others. Meanwhile, Geordie searches for information online and discovers that some spiders of the Sicaridae family can multiply their size tenfold to defend themselves against predators. Manon checks social media, but aside from 2 tweets posted by neighbors in the building, there is no news about what is happening. She tells Geordie that the rest of the world doesn't care about them. When Kaleb and Matthews return to the apartment, everyone is ready to leave, but Gilles appears behind them and attacks them with a baton. He hits Kaleb and then Matthews, ordering them to respect the quarantine as the police instructed. Gilles forces them back inside the apartment and points out that Geordie and Lila shouldn't be there because they don't live in the building. He still suspects Kaleb is trafficking drugs and demands to search his room. At first, Kaleb refuses, but when he sees Gilles getting more aggressive, he decides to let him in. Gilles enters the room, finds the sealed box, and starts stabbing it with his knife, thinking it contains drugs. When he makes a hole large enough, the spiders swarm out and launch themselves at him. The group escapes the apartment and slams the door, leaving Gilles inside to die. They go down the stairs, finding webs in every corner. When they reach a hallway, they discover it is completely blocked by a giant web containing the largest spiders they have seen so far. The lights flicker for a moment, and Kaleb notices something important. When the lights are on, the spiders seem to freeze. They decide Manon will stay behind to control the light switch while the others cross the hallway, and once everyone reaches the other side, she will run to catch up with them. The group advances slowly with the lights on while the spiders remain motionless. Lila is terrified, but manages to keep going, almost in tears. One by one, they make it to the other end of the hall, and finally, it is Manon's turn. She lets go of the switch and runs, but halfway across, the light goes out, and she gets trapped in a web. She takes out her lighter and uses the flame to burn her way through, managing to reunite with the others just in time. They reach the door leading to the outside and try to open it, but the police have barricaded it from the outside. They scream for help, but the officers order them to return to their homes and fire tear gas through a slot. The group tries to keep pushing, but the police open fire on the door to drive them back. They have no choice but to run back through the infested hallway while the gas momentarily protects them from the spiders. When they reach the end of the hallway, Kaleb realizes Jordy is not with them. He runs back and finds him on the floor, covered in webs and spiders, with bites all over his body. Jordy tells him to leave, saying it is too late for him. Kaleb refuses at first, but the spiders start closing in on him too, so he has no choice but to leave him behind. Lila is devastated and wants to go back for her boyfriend, but they don't let her. Matthews looks up and discovers something terrifying. The bodies of neighbors are cocooned in giant webs on the walls and ceiling, and a huge spider is emerging from the web. He screams for the others to run, and they rush up the stairs, closing the door behind them, abandoning Jordy to his fate. The group reaches an empty room where they can hear Jordy's screams as he dies. Lila is heartbroken and wants to go back to him, but Manon holds her back so she doesn't do something reckless. Matthews finds a bag on the floor and discovers it contains the firecrackers Kaleb confiscated from the kids the day before, so he lights one to provide some illumination. The others are crying for Jordy and seem to have lost all hope, but Matthews tells them to get up because they still have a chance. He suggests going up to the roof to signal for help from above and using the fireworks to defend themselves against the spiders. Matthews throws a firecracker into the hallway, and the explosion makes all the spiders on the ceiling freeze for a moment. The group begins to advance slowly, using the firecrackers as a shield, and when the flame dies out, Kaleb pulls a Molotov cocktail from the bag and throws it into the corridor. The fire causes the spiders to panic and run toward them, so everyone sprints up the stairs while pointing their flashlights at the creatures to buy time. On one of the floors, they hear neighbors screaming for help from their apartment, but they yell at them to stay inside and keep running because they cannot stop. The flashlights are running low on battery, so Manon searches Gilles' pockets and finds the keys to his apartment. The group enters and shuts the door just before the spiders catch up to them. Kaleb has an emotional breakdown, saying all of this is his fault and no one tries to console him because they know he is right. Lila asks him why he stopped speaking to Jordy, and he tells her the story. When they were kids, both dreamed of having their own reptile collection and even made a pact. One day, Kaleb brought an iguana that ended up biting Jordy's leg. The wound got infected, and he had to have surgery. Since then, their friendship was shattered, and they stopped speaking. Lila reveals something that leaves him speechless. She tells him that Jordy always told everyone his leg injury was from a scooter accident. He never blamed Kaleb. She also confesses that Jordy didn't come to the apartment to help Manon with the bathroom, but to talk to him and rekindle their friendship. Kaleb doesn't have time to process this information because, at that moment, police officers burst through the window and surround them. The officers order them to return to their apartments because they might be infected, but Kaleb tries to explain what is happening. An officer strikes him to shut him up, and Kaleb reacts by trying to defend himself. The officer takes him down easily, and when Manon tries to help her brother, she is shoved away too. Matthews attacks another officer, and soon both groups are fighting on the floor. An officer sprays pepper spray at Matthews and starts choking him, so Kaleb grabs a gun that fell to the floor and shoots the officer to save his friend. The police finally manage to subdue everyone and restrain them. They are taken to the building's parking garage, where the police have set up their base of operations to combat the spiders. A special team collects the bodies of the creatures while the commanding officer tries to explain that they nearly ruined the operation. He tells them that everything they've done is part of the protocol to help them, and that many officers have died as well. Kaleb doesn't want to hear excuses and screams that Jordy died because of them, that they locked the door and prevented them from escaping when they tried to flee. In the middle of the argument, Matthews starts coughing and reveals he was bitten by a spider. He didn't say anything earlier because he didn't want to worry them, but he knows he doesn't have much time left. He wants to go out like a hero, so he gets up and runs toward the power generator to shut it off. The lights go out, plunging the parking garage into darkness. Matthews runs toward the door they were keeping sealed and pushes the officer guarding it, throwing it wide open. Hundreds of spiders swarm in, and the police open fire as the creatures scatter throughout the area. Matthews disappears into the chaos as the spiders begin killing the officers one by one. Kaleb and the girls take advantage of the confusion to escape. Lila manages to free Kaleb from his restraints using a lighter, and they hide behind a car. Kaleb tells Lila to get inside the vehicle while he looks for his sister. He runs through the chaos, dodging spiders and police until he finally finds Manon, but just then, a bullet hits him in the leg. Manon grabs a fire extinguisher, breaks the window of a van, and helps her brother get inside. While tending to his wound, Manon apologizes for her attitude and admits that she misses their mother too. Kaleb pulls out a bracelet that belonged to her and gives it to Manon, telling her to keep it. Some spiders appear at the van's windows and are about to get in when Lila turns on the headlights of another car to scare them away. The siblings run toward the vehicle where Lila is, dodging spiders and police along the way. Lila floors it and drives at full speed through the parking garage, crashing into several cars, motorcycles, and even some officers who get in her way. After several turns, she finally finds the exit, but a giant spider is blocking the path. Kaleb tells her to turn off the car lights and gets out of the vehicle. He stares down the creature, which seems hypnotized by the darkness, and when Lila turns off the lights, the spider moves away. Kaleb runs to the garage gate and opens it manually, yelling at them to go. Lila accelerates, and the car shoots out into the open. After so much suffering, they finally manage to escape the building. Days later, a barrier surrounds the building, covered with photographs of all the people who died during the infestation. There are flowers, messages, and mementos left in their memory. The authorities decide to demolish the building because there is no other option, so the survivors lose their homes. Lila and Manon watch the destruction unfold while Kaleb is in the forest, burying a box containing a childhood photograph of him and Jordy. In the picture, both are standing in front of a reptile house, a reminder of the promise they made to one day have their own pet collection. As Kaleb finishes burying the box, he notices a small spider crawling up his shoulder. He gently takes it between his fingers and observes it for a moment before blowing softly to release it into the forest. After everything he went through, Kaleb cannot hate the creatures that destroyed his life and took the people he loved.